those cell phones, please.
Starling. Hi, my name is Jane, and I have bipolar. Exactly when I got bipolar, I'm not sure. You might be bipolar. If you can hear your hair growing, if you can get a runner's high by sitting up, if you can't look up at the full moon because you're afraid the gravitational pull will pull your face off. Bipolar is no joke, but it helps to have a sense of humor when you have mental illness. It helps you to deal with how people see you and how you feel about yourself. When I look at those movie clips, I'm thinking that sometimes people see me as scary. I've been working since I was 16, and I have heard some of my past employers make negative remarks about mental illness, saying people with mental illness are crazy people. Remarks like crazy made me feel bad about myself. I was afraid. What would people say about me if they found out I had bipolar? But I did get a job where I thought I would be safe. At a treatment center for mentally ill, chemically dependent women. I let them know that I had a mental illness. I was fired the next day. I grew up in a Minneapolis suburb. I have 2 siblings. They are both doctors. Education was a very important part in my family. I started to struggle in 1972, which my last year of high school. I was up and down, but mostly down. I couldn't get out of bed. When I was out of bed, I was skipping class and getting high on marijuana. My mother and the doctor couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I wanted to graduate from high school, but I also wanted to die. I started getting into trouble with the law, and I was sent to a juvenile group home, and I did manage to graduate. Then I took an apartment in Uptown and partied all the time, and I started college, and then I dropped out. I met a guy that I thought was my ticket to getting high for free, not knowing that I would have 2 sons with him. Throughout this relationship was abusive. I would sometimes take off for days at a time, spending all the money and writing bad checks. I ended up going to jail. I remember the judge asking me why I wrote bad checks. I said that I didn't know why. I had a psychotic breakdown in jail and was transferred to a hospital where I was given meds that made me feel drugged out. I couldn't function. I felt if this was my life, then let me die. But I knew that I couldn't die because I had 2 sons who needed their mother. When I went home from the hospital, I stopped taking the meds, and the fighting with my husband started all over again. On a cold winter day, I took all the money, my boys, and nothing else, and walked out the door. Life did get better in some ways, but I continued to be up and down. I continued to use drugs. In 1987, I went to treatment for drug addiction. I completed treatment and returned home still not knowing that I had an untreated mental illness. I went from job to job and I kept losing jobs. But in 2008, things were going well, at least for a time. I had a job I liked, a great apartment, and a dog named Sadie. But then I lost the job too and didn't have any money to pay rent. I ended up living in a shelter and getting put out every morning at 7 a.m. One day, someone told me about a low-income clinic. I called and they told me to come in, and that's when I was diagnosed with bipolar. I was given meds and they gave me a case manager. My case manager told me about Vail Place, but I didn't want to go because I didn't want to accept that I had a mental illness. A year later, I finally agreed to check out Vail Place. I was scared, but began to meet people that struggled with a lot of the same things I do. Then I started getting involved with Vail Place. I help out with jobs, and about once a month I cook. I found affordable housing with them, and I am working with them to find a part-time job that I want. I do have a part-time job now, but I don't like the hours. I volunteer at a local hospital, and next month I will be working with homeless. Life is good. I know that I have to treat my bipolar like I treat my asthma. Take my meds and live healthy. Because of Vail Place, I am no longer afraid anymore. Thank you.
Good morning, and happy Halloween. It's great to see everybody here. Thank you for spending your Halloween morning with us. Jane, what an amazing journey you had. I am so glad that you found Vail Place. I heard a few of you react like I did when Jane shared her story that when she went to work for the agency that provided services for mental health, or mental health agency, that the day after she shared that she had bipolar disorder, that she was fired. Shocking and disappointing for her to be fired from an agency that should have supported and provided her understanding and acceptance. No wonder Jane fears how people will react to her. Imagine living your life thinking that you might be the source of someone else's fear. Really think about that. How would it feel to know that someone might fear you? Personally, until hearing stories from Jane and others, it never occurred to me that I might be the source of someone's fear. Jane, it takes a lot of courage to share your story, especially one so personal, and at times when you've worried about how people might react to you. So thank you. Thank you for helping all of us see a very different perspective. Before Jane shared her story, we saw stories through the lens of Hollywood about crazy, scary people like Hannibal Lecter or Norman Bates. Hollywood's portrayal of people with serious mental illness. Characters created to scare us in a scene where the music builds and we know we're supposed to be afraid. But that's the point, it's entertainment. We are supposed to be afraid. And if we aren't, the folks at Hollywood haven't done their jobs. And I have to admit, I love old horror movies. But when the lights come up, I know it's not reality. You all know it's not reality. But sadly, there are people in our community who don't know it, who in their everyday life carry the fear of people with a mental illness, spurred on by Hollywood, the media, or simply by a lack of knowledge. Yet in my everyday life, my reality is actually quite different from Hollywood's version. I am privileged to spend my day with the people at Vail Place. People involved with our clubhouse, our case management, housing and employment program, staff and members, all of whom are dedicated, talented, amazing people, and I am truly, truly blessed to spend my day with them. The Executive Director of Vail Place, and I am proud to say that I've spent the last 23 years of my work life here at the agency. I still remember the day when I walked in the door at the Minneapolis Clubhouse, and I was greeted not by a staff person with a name badge or a receptionist behind a desk, by a group of smiling, friendly people They were the members of Vail Place. In fact, speaking of members, I have a great story to share with you. So did you know that the very first clubhouse, it wasn't started by psychiatrists or therapists or social workers? It was actually started in 1948 by a group of people who had been discharged from a state hospital in upstate New York. They reconnected on the streets of New York City and formed a club. And they called their club WANA for We Are Not Alone. And just a year later, WANA became Fountain House, and the clubhouse model of rehabilitation was born. And just a little over 30 years later, in 1981, Vail Place was started, and the clubhouse moved to Minnesota. Our agency was named after Dr. David Vail. And like the people that started the clubhouse movement, he was a courageous pioneer. Although he was part of the medical establishment in the 60s, his thinking was very revolutionary for the time. David Vail believed that with proper treatment, individuals with a serious mental illness could recover enough from their symptoms to lead fulfilling lives as integrated members of society. Not existing on the fringe, but integrated, having a home, a job, and friends. But imagine trying to get an apartment where the landlord doesn't want to lease to you because he's just sure that someone like you won't pay the rent. Or imagine how it would feel to approach an employer who believed that your kind of illness made you unemployable. Or worse yet, imagine being defined by your illness. If you have cancer, people are sympathetic and compassionate, and they'll say, ooh, he has cancer. But if you have a serious mental illness, it's possible that they might say, he's schizophrenic or she's bipolar. It's tough to make friends, get a job, or find a home if all people see is your illness. At Vail Place, I'm happy to say, though, that we've created a very different reality. We know that with Vail Place in the picture, landlords no longer hesitate to rent to our members. And in fact, last year we helped over 400 people find and keep a home. And with our clubhouse and case management programs, we're helping members to lead fulfilling lives in the community, not in the hospital. And do you remember the information that was on the screen earlier? It told about the cost of one day stay in the hospital? $2,600. It's a very expensive way to provide treatment when a community-based option like Vail Place exists, which is $6 a day. Earlier, I talked about what it means to be an integrated member of society and Dr. Vail's vision for people with serious mental illness. But what if society doesn't want you to be integrated? What if all they see is Hollywood's version of reality? With your help, I think we can change that. Today, not only do we need your financial support, it is a fundraising breakfast after all, but I would like to ask you to be a champion for Vail Place and for people with a serious mental illness. When you leave here today and you go back to work or you go home this evening, please share your experience with your coworkers and your friends and your family. You can make a difference. In fact, you've already made a difference simply by spending your morning with Vail Place. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is a video produced by our dear friends at Martin Bastion. And in this video, you will meet Christy. Fortunately, Christy couldn't be here today because she is actually at work. And you will learn about our employment program and the success that it's achieved for people like Christy. And you'll find out what would have happened in Christy's life if Vail Place didn't exist.
What if Vail Place didn't exist? Boo! I just could not resist doing that. I hope nobody spilled their coffee. So, how do you like my costume? In case you're wondering, I'm dressed like a mentally ill person. Well, I guess not. Since I do have a mental illness, it's not really a costume, it's just me. I'm Steve, and I'm really happy to be back here this year. And for those of you who were here last year, I'd like to give you a quick update on what's been a remarkable year for me. I kept my part-time maintenance job until February, when the folks at Vail Place presented me with an opportunity to fulfill a lifelong dream. After a 2-week course, I became a certified peer recovery specialist, and I now work in a halfway house counseling people with mental illness and chemical dependency. My hope is to be able to pass along the hope to the others that recovery from mental illness is not only possible, but probable. And I hope to put some of the lifelong experience I've had dealing with both of them to good use helping other people. And one of the guiding principles of my life is something that was said by Abraham Lincoln when he said, "What we do for ourselves dies with us, and what we do for others is and remains immortal." And now on to Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody. Now, there's a contradiction in terms for you. What do you think of when you think of Halloween? To me, it means scary costumes, ghosts and monsters, haunted houses and corn mazes. All things designed to instill fear in us. As someone with a mental illness, I spent most of my life living in fear, so it's something I'm very familiar with. My life was all trick and no treat. There was always that constant fear that I was only going to keep getting worse, never better. And that people around me might find out just how bad off I really was and abandon me, leaving me alone when all I really wanted was to fit in, to belong someplace, to have that kind of life that everybody else seemed to have. It was like being trapped in a corn maze for most of my life, with something scary at every turn. Unable to escape, hopeless that I ever would. Then I came to Vail Place, and I ran into a bunch of other people in that maze. They took me in, and they understood me, knew who I really was, and liked me anyway. Together, we began the long journey out of that maze. You know, it's not quite so scary when you've got company along the way. We bumped into some tour guides also. Now, these wonderful people had been helping others find their way out of the maze for years, and they were really good at it. For the first time, I had hope that I could get out of that maze, and I could still have that life that I'd always just hungered for. And there were people around me to help show me the way. I still had to do the walking, but I knew which turns to take, and I believed that there was an exit, and that it opened up to a life without fear, filled with a joy and a happiness that I could never even imagine from inside that maze. So, how do we keep the doors open? How do we provide that meeting place in the maze and the guides to help people out of it? Would the table ambassadors please pass out the packets at your tables now? Since we are a nonprofit charity, we rely on the generosity of people just like you. We give you a chance at immortality and that warm feeling that comes from helping others who are less fortunate than you. I'd like to direct your attention to the video screens and quickly walk you through the pledge forms in your packets. First, let me thank the WASI Foundation. They're supporting our efforts today by offering a $10,000 challenge grant. Jan Preble of the Wassing Foundation is with us this morning. Jan, would you mind standing? Thank you. This generous challenge grant means that if we can raise that amount, $10,000, in new or increased multi-year gifts, it will be matched dollar for dollar. That's an offer we just can't pass up, right? So please help us meet this challenge. Now, I know everybody here is smart, but some of you also have smartphones. So if you like, you don't even need to put pen to paper. But please, everybody, take the pens. They're a gift for you. You can scan that QR code and make your gift online by credit card right here and now. The next screens you see will explain the Dr. Vail Giving Society, which is broken down into 3 levels of generosity. Level 1, a pledge of $1,000 a year for 5 years. Level 2, a pledge of $5,000 a year for 5 years. And level 3, a pledge of $10,000 a year for 5 years. And of course, we're happy to receive any amount that you care to give. If you have any questions about the pledge forms, just ask your table ambassadors. They are highly trained professionals. And remember, it costs less than $6 a day to support a member at Vail Place. And every day is one step closer to the exit from that maze. I'm eternally grateful that Vail Place was there for me when I needed it. Together, we can keep it open for someone else. Now we'll run through the slides of giving one more time and let you enjoy a little music while we give you a couple minutes to fill out those forms. Thank you all for your support.
And I'm happy to tell you that I am the board chair for Vail Place. I've been involved with Vail Place for the last 8 years. And I have to say that every year that I come to an event like this, it's so wonderful to see faces that I've seen every year and then new faces as well. So thank you all for taking time this morning and spending it with us. I'd also like to take a moment to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the sponsors for this event, and we are eternally grateful. First of all, KPMG, and I think we have Bill Long here this morning. Bill, would you mind standing, please? Thank you. Bill also serves on the Vail Place board with me. I'd also like to thank TCF, my organization, and has also, like KPMG, been a very long-standing supporter of Vail Place. And we have a good representation from TCF here today, including Neil Brown, who is actually a member, a Vail Place board member in the past and chair, and then Roger Sorensen, who's also a current chair of Vail Place. So thank you very much. And then I'd like to recognize Fred Law and Excel Energy, and I think we have Scott Dorfman and Emily Pearl. Would you please stand? Thank you. And they are also members of the Vail Place Board. And finally, AFG and Nystrom Associates. They are new to sponsorship of this Vail Hour event, but they're not new to supporting Vail in a variety of other ways. And I think there are some representatives from both of these organizations here. Would you mind just standing and recognizing yourself? Yes, thank you. This breakfast is made possible by these sponsors. Without their support, we would not be able to serve the breakfast that we did for you this morning, use this wonderful facility. And so as a result of their support, all of the funds that are raised here this morning will go directly to the programs and services that help Vail Place stay in operation. The breakfast, also, I would like to formally recognize Martin Bastian. Martin Bastian, once again, has provided their time and their talents to presenting this video for us. They've done this for us in the past, and we are eternally grateful. And then thanks to all the rest of my fellow board members who are here today. I appreciate all the guests that you've brought, and I appreciate your camaraderie and also your support on Vail Place. I'd also like to thank, of course, the staff members of Vail, the members who are here today, and especially our table ambassadors. Without you, this would not have been possible. And then finally, dear friends, all of you who have taken the time out of your day, and we want to try to be respectful of that time, taking the time out of your day. So thank you, all of our wonderful guests. Please also don't forget that as guests, you get that wonderful parting gift of caramel corn, and you get that pen, which hopefully still has some ink in it after you've written all of those zeros. You've learned a lot from our speakers this morning, and we're very, very proud to have the members of Vail Place speak to you and tell you of their stories. But I also want you to know that every person that stood before you this morning, or the persons that you saw on the screen, each one of them absolutely embody the core vision that Dr. Vail had so many years ago. He was convinced that with proper treatment and support, community support, that individuals with mental illness could be drawn back into society and become productive members of society. And when these individuals found Vail Place and found their path to recovery, boy, did they give back. Think of Steve, who's now a peer recovery specialist. He's giving back. Think of Jane and the work that she's doing. Think of others. Think of Guy, who's going back to school because of Vail Place, and he is going to help others. Think of Jack, who sits on boards and helps others through other foundation issues. Think of Christy, who you saw on the video. Think of Julie, who's now doing what she was meant to do, and that is to help children. And think of Teresa, who now heals others through her comedy. These are all individuals who have given back. These, my friends, are results. And this is what Vail Place does. So now we're coming to a close, and I appreciate your time and I appreciate your attention. If you are a business person or you're associated with a business and you would like to provide a sponsorship or even have some volunteer opportunities for you and your staff, please take a flyer as you leave today. If you'd like to learn a little bit more and perhaps attend one of our tours, please do that as well. There are tour cards as you leave. And then finally, Vail Place relies on a network of community support. People like you who learn about us, who tell others of your experience, and are inspired by the members who are here. Thank you very much. This concludes our program. Please feel free, linger, talk, take out that pledge card one more time, make sure you've done everything appropriately. It's always good to take a check one more time. Have a wonderful and safe Halloween. Thank you so much.